The Pasuk tells us regarding the Me'il that the Kohen Gadol wore, that Vasiso al Shulav, that on the bottom of it, you will make Rimoinei Tcheles, pomegranates made of Tcheles, that's wool dyed in a particular color. On the very bottom of it, all around, Upamoinei Zov, and golden bells, Besoicham Saviv, there will be golden bells inside of them. What does it mean inside of them? So Rashi explains that even though the Rimoinim, these pomegranates, were round and they were hollow, the bell was not inside the pomegranate, but rather it was between the pomegranates. That is, between each two pomegranates there was a bell. Different to some other Mefarshim that actually learn that the bell was inside of the pomegranate. The Ramban asks, if in fact this is the way it was, the way Rashi says, then what was the point of the Rimoinim? What was the point of these pomegranates if they don't contain the bells? If they were just there for beauty, says the Ramban, then why are they being made as hollow pomegranates? Why not like golden apples? This is the Ramban's question. The Mizrahi, which is one of the Mefarshim on Rashi, and he addresses what the Ramban says, and he says, I don't understand why is the Ramban saying that there should be apples better than Rimoinim, better than pomegranates. In what way are apples better than pomegranates? The Rebbe says, seemingly we could say that since according to Rashi, these pomegranates are only there for beauty, there's no other use for them, and we find by the menorah also had different designs, the gviyim, the special goblets, the special flowers, and the kaftoirim. And what were these kaftoirim? Rashi explains that on the menorah, the kaftoirim were actually in the shape of apples, and they were there for beauty. And therefore, it makes sense over here also, it would be fitting here too, something that's there for beauty would be like an apple. But the Rebbe says it's still not understood why, in fact, are we associating beauty more with apples than to the pomegranates. And another question, why in fact is there on the Me'il there would be the Rimoinim, these pomegranates, and on the menorah there would be something in the shape of apples. The Rebbe explains, in regards to the bells on the bottom of the Me'il, the Pasuk says, V'nishma koilei, that the purpose is that when the Kohen Gadol comes into the holiness, into the Heichal, the sounds of these bells would be heard, and this is so crucial, so important, that if not, he's liable with death. And the question is why? Why is the noise of these bells so important? In fact, you might say, there's a pasuk that tells us, Loi berash Hashem. Hashem doesn't come with great commotion and noise. Hashem comes b'koil d'mam odaka, in a place of silence, of quietness. In fact, on Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol went in to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he's not wearing all the 8 special garments. He's not wearing the Me'il. He doesn't have those bells. The Ramban explains that the idea of these bells, in a certain sense, is like getting permission, making an announcement before entering the palace of the king. You don't just walk in, you don't barge in. You first send a messenger, you announce that you're coming. On Yom Kippur, this is not needed because the special favoritism or quality of the Yidden is being shown then that they don't even need to be announced and they don't need a shliach to announce them. The Kohen Gadol comes straight into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. But according to this, the idea of the sounds of the bells would only be as a preparation for the Avodah. But since, as we understand that every detail in the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol would be very, very precise and accurate, especially something like this, which is tied to the death penalty, it makes sense to say that the bells are actually somehow crucial for the Avodah itself. So one of the explanations. When the Kohen Gadol goes into the Kodesh, he's coming as a messenger on behalf of Klal Yisrael. In a certain sense, he's walking in with all of Klal Yisrael. Who is being represented by the sounds, by the noise of these bells? So we know that Chassidus tells us that the avodah of a Baal Tshuva is with great commotion, with great noise. He's running away from evil. He's running away from bad, like a person that's running away from death, which will make lots and lots of noise. The truth is, this is not only for someone that has Aveiros. This could apply in many cases in a more settled level. Someone that still has a Nefesh HaBahamis that's quite strong, or even someone that's working just based on his Nefesh HaLikis. But if it's not with the greatest bitul, so there's still some form of self, and he's running away from this. He's doing tshuva, and it's with lots of noise, lots of commotion. The Rebbe relates that the Baal Shem Tov was once asked about all the motions and noise that Chassidim make during davening. And the Baal Shem Tov responded with a mashal of a person drowning, where he's making all sorts of motions and movements with his hands, with his feet, screaming that people should save him. Surely no one will laugh at him then. And this is really this idea of a Yid trying to run away from all the negativity and get close to Hashem. Now, even though it's true, we quoted before a pasuk that loy berash Hashem, but the Rebbe explains that that's more related to a higher level in Avodas Hashem when you're dealing with Shem Havaya. And there you have to have the absolute bittul. But when we're dealing with still running away from bad, then yes, there is a lot of noise. Says the Rebbe, this is the pshat that the Kohen Gadol was going in to the Kodesh, to the Heichel, he's going in with the bells. That's making a lot of noise, meaning to say that he's taking along with himself all of the Yidden, including these Yidden that are making noise, running away from their previous place. And this is also hinted in the fact that this is at the very bottom of the Me'il, in other words, people that are still on quite a lowly level. And this is why it's so important to the Avodah. This is why his life is dependent on it. If a Kohen Gadol wants to go into the Kodesh, but he doesn't want to represent and take along with himself these kinds of Yidden as well, then he doesn't really have room to be the Kohen Gadol. His life is really about representing all of the Yidden. His Avodah needs to include all of the Yidden. Now this is true the rest of the year. On Yom Kippur, on the other hand, where every Yid is on the level of Malachim, at Yom Kippur, the deepest iskashrus of a Yid, the deepest bond and essential connection of a Yid is shown how he's connected to Hashem. On Yom Kippur, a Yid is not like someone that's far away, getting close, but rather the Yid is then on Tachlis HaBittul with the greatest level of bittul, of nullification, and therefore it is without noise. It's without the me'il. It's b'koil d'ma modaka, like we said before, coming in a silent and quiet way. Says the Rebbe, now we can start understanding the difference between Rashi and the Ramban. What we said was, the Ramban says that if in fact these rimoinim at the bottom of the me'il are only there for beauty, then why not make tapuchim? Why not make apples? Rashi says, no, even if it's for beauty, it's specifically rimoinim. What does this represent? Yidden in Chazal and in Psukim are compared to both, to pomegranates and to apples. But an apple usually shows on Yidden the way they are on the very, very highest levels. The rimoin, the pomegranate, on the other hand, is representing Yidden that are on a quite lowly level. The Gemara speaks about that even those that are completely empty amongst the Yidden, even the sinners, but they're still filled with mitzvahs like a pomegranate. So the pomegranate represents someone that's on a lower level. According to Rashi, who's Pshutei Shel Mikra, we're looking at Yidden as they are on the simple level, the more external level. We're looking at the bottom of the Me'il, we see people that are quite empty. They're more like that remind that we need to be saying that the Yidden are like a remind that even if they're empty, they still have many mitzvahs. And we're being told that the Kohen Gadol needs to go in even with these types of lowly Yidden. And that's what Rashi is saying. On the other hand, the Ramban, which Ramban generally brings things also from the secrets of the Torah, from Pnimius HaTorah, from Kabbalah and so on, he is looking at a Yid the way they are mitzad the Pnimius, where a Yid is not shayach, is not connected to any form of sin. And therefore the Ramban says if we want to focus on the beauty of the Yid, that means we're not only looking at the rimoinim that they have some sort of benefit within the Me'il, but the whole point is only the beauty, then why aren't we focusing not on the idea of a remind that they're empty, but they have mitzvahs? Focus on the pnimius of the Yid. Look at the real beauty, that Yidden are all on the highest darga, mitzvah der neshama, they're like apples, which as we said before represents very high levels of Yidden. And this would be going back to the menorah. Like in the menorah you have 7 branches, and Chassidus it explains that they represent 7 levels of avodas Hashem. If Yidden are serving Hashem, the beauty is brought out in apples when they're on a very high level. And that's why Ramban says, if it's for beauty, why not focus on apples? Now the Rebbe says, even though simply it sounds like this avodah, the noisy, the commotion avodah, is going to be a lower avodah when a person is doing b'koil d'mamadaka, that level of bittul, but in truth there's a certain advantage in that noisy level, the tumult level, because this represents that a person is going out of all of his limitations. As we see, when a person is more limited, that's when things are quieter and more settled. Whereas when the person is excited, it represents a concept of going out of all limitations. In fact, this is one of the reasons why we say that b'makim shebali tshuva, in the place where bali tshuva stand, a tzaddik gomer can't stand. What's the bal tshuva? He's going bligvul, completely without limitations, with all of that noise. The Rebbe concludes with a special ha'ira to our generation at the very end of Golus. There are some people that argue and say, yes, it's true that because of how lowly our generation is, we do have to go out there and connect Yidden with Torah and Yiddishkeit making Bali Tshuva, but why do we have to do with such tumult, with such commotion? Going out into the street announcing loudly for Yidden to put on tefillin, mezuzos, tzedakah, etc. And the answer is that now when we're at the end of the Golus, like the bottom of the Me'il, we need to bring Yidden into holiness. This has to be specifically done with the biggest commotion, like in the Me'il. Especially, the Rebbe says, when we look around the world and we see that things of Kalipa, of the other side, are being done with such great commotion, the way to nullify that, to counteract that, is through a noise and a tumult of Kedusha. And surely this will bring the time when the Yidden will be calm and settled in a peaceful way in Eretz Yisrael, through that sound of the great shofar and the koil mevaser va'omer, the one that's going to come and tell us the great news of the Geula coming b'karev mamash.